The great Indian railway journey. What excitement it brings to mind. Rushing off to the station, all the shouting and the hustle and bustle in the platform, running after the porters, climbing into the railway train, and then making friends with all the co-passengers, eating everything that is brought, looking out of the windows. An Indian rail journey is always phenomenally exciting. Let us look at the history of how trains first came to Tamil Nadu. All of us read in history books that the first train in India ran between Bombay and Thane in the year 1853. But that fact is wrong. The first train actually ran in Madras. It was an experimental railway line and it was established in Chindadripet by the side of the river Kuvam. The idea was to lay a railway line between Red Hills and St. Thomas Mount and transport all the granite that was there to the city in order to help in the construction. The railway line was laid as an experimental measure by Arthur Cotton, who would later go on to build the dam over the river Godavari and become Sir Arthur Cotton in the process. This was a very short-lived measure, and as we all know, the first railway line of India came up in Bombay. The first train in Chennai or Madras came in 1856. The Madras Railway Company was incorporated in the 1840s in England, and then in 1853 work began on constructing the railway line in Madras. In 1856, the line was laid between Madras and Arcot, which was then the headquarters of the Nawab of Arcot, and the railway line was inaugurated with great excitement. The coaches for that train journey were made by Simpson and Company, while the engines were all imported. We must remember that at that time we didn't have a harbour in the city of Madras. All ships stopped 2 miles in the sea, and rafts used to go and receive passengers and goods. Each locomotive was offloaded that way. Each locomotive weighed 13 tons or 13,000 kilos. The rafts had the cranes mounted on them. The cranes lifted the engines and lowered them on the raft in the midst of the sea, and the engines were then brought to the shore. The whole city was given a public holiday, and everybody from the governor downwards went to the beach to witness the engines being offloaded. And then there was the grand inaugural ceremony. It was recorded in all the magazines of England and in Tamil in the form of poetry. The Nawab, the governor of Madras Presidency, the commander of the Madras Army, and the chairman of the Madras Chamber of Commerce and Industry, they were all present. And then on 21-gun salute being given, the train left from Rayapuram and travelled towards Arcot. I mentioned Rayapuram because that is where the Madras Railway Company was headquartered. Then when did the central station come? That came in 1870. By the time, it was felt that a railway station ought to be in the middle of the city and not somewhere far in the north. And therefore, the Madras Vyasarpadi line was laid, and that line was brought up to Madras Central Station, and that station was constructed. The tower that we see today was completed only early in the 1900s, but it remains the most defining feature of the central station. The Madras Railway Company operated all the trains going from Madras to the north. In Dharwad, in Maharashtra-Karnataka border, you had the Southern Maratha Railway Company. In 1908, the Madras Railway Company and the Southern Maratha Railway Company, they got together and they became the M&SM, Madras and Southern Maratha Railway Company, and that was the company that ran all the train services from Central Station. Now the trains in South India, south of Madras, that is all the trains going from Trichy and then to Kanyakumari, they came under a separate railway company, and that was known as the South Indian Railway Company, the SIR. This was a paperweight made for the SIR from the same material out of which the track was made. That company was incorporated in 1890, and it then began operation with its headquarters in Trichy. By the early 1900s, they decided that they needed an impressive railway station in Madras city as well, because their northern services were terminating in Madras. And therefore, the Egmore railway station came to be built around 1914 or so, the contractor being T. Swaminatha Pillai. Egmore station had a unique feature. it had a drive-in platform. Till the 1980s, you just needed to bring your car right onto the platform. Passengers could get off, get onto the train, and then you could drive away. Today, you cannot even imagine this kind of thing given the congestion in that area. It was therefore the South Indian Railway Company and the Madras and Southern Maratha Railway Company that amalgamated together and then post-independence became part of the Southern Railway. That then was how the railway service really began over here. One of the great achievements of the railway service was to ensure that people of all castes, communities and religions could travel together without any sense of discrimination. But even then there was a first class, a second class and a third class. The first class was normally meant only for the British, second class for well-off Indians, and then the third class for the ordinary people. Gradually this distinction broke down as well, and Indians began to get into the first class, much to the dislike of the British. One of the earliest was Sir T. Muthuswami Iyer, the first Indian to become a judge of the High Court of Madras. There is a story that he got into the train, took off his turban and walking stick and fell asleep. An Englishman came, got very annoyed on seeing that an Indian was sleeping in a first class compartment, and threw Muthuswami Iyer's turban and walking stick out of the window. Next morning, Muthuswami Iyer got up and realized what had happened. He picked up the shoes and the luggage of the Englishman and flung them out of the window. When the Englishman got up and began searching, Muthuswami Iyer told him, well, they have gone in search of my walking stick and turban. When they find them, they'll all come back together. There were all kinds of other strange behaviors. People always believed that you should not sleep in the direction in which the train was traveling. You should not sleep on the berth which was just above the railway wheels. There were many who believed that if you touched the handles of the doors, your fingers would get injured, so they had a servant who would come along to do these things. Gradually, all these distinctions fell away. And by the time N.S. Krishnan performed his Kindan Charitram, he was able to rejoice in the fact that the rail and the train service had done what several learned people and saints in India could not do, namely doing away with the caste system and with feelings of separation based on circumstances of birth. And he says that the railway train, though just made out of wood, was able to achieve what even God could not, establish a sense of equality. That then is the real achievement of the Indian Railway, bringing us all together. Let us rejoice in this service. I now take leave of you and look forward to seeing you next week with more interesting episodes. If you like my channel, share it and subscribe it. Bye for now.